Why and when did the British royal family change its name to Windsor? Whatever your views about the British royal family, it's an interesting question because it shows how much society has changed over the last 100 years or so. Although there are 12 monarchies in Europe, the most famous and most talked about in Europe and probably the world is the British royal family. This is not quite accurate because the monarchy of the United Kingdom is also the monarchy of 14 other countries. And here they are. The 14 realms, of which King Charles, sorry, I'm still getting used to calling him King Charles, is now king, are in alphabetical order: Antigua and Barbuda, Australia, the Bahamas, Belize, Canada, Grenada, Jamaica, New Zealand, Papua New Guinea, St. Kitts and Nevis, St. Lucia, St. Vincent, the Grenadines, the Solomon Islands, and Tuvalu. By the way, did you know the other monarchies of Europe? There are 7 kingdoms: Denmark, Norway, Sweden, Spain, the Netherlands, Belgium, and of course the United Kingdom. And there are 3 principalities: Andorra, Liechtenstein, and Monaco. Do you know the surnames of these royal houses? I confess I had to look them up. Just about all British citizens and citizens of the other countries that are part of, shall we say, the British monarchic system know that the British royal family's surname is Windsor. And most of these people also know that Windsor was not the original name. Windsor is the name of the oldest of the royal residences and the town that surrounds it. Most people who live in the British monarchic system have a vague idea that the name has changed about 100 years ago. A very large proportion of people in other countries know nothing about this. So what were they called, and why and when did they change the name to Windsor? We need to go back to the beginning of the 20th century during the reign of George V, the King Emperor and grandson of Queen Victoria. His surname was Saxe-Coburg-Gotha. This was the surname of his grandfather, Prince Albert of Saxe-Coburg-Gotha. His grandmother, Queen Victoria, was a princess of the House of Hanover, and her full name was Princess Alexandrina Victoria of Kent of the House of Hanover. Why the House of Hanover? Without going into too much detail, the 1688 Revolution and the Act of Succession which followed it banned Catholics from holding the position of head of state. And upon the death of the last Stuart monarch, Queen Anne, who died childless, the crown was due to go to Sophia, Electress of Hanover in northwest Germany, part of the Holy Roman Empire. She was Queen Anne's second cousin. There were better claimants to the throne, but the House of Hanover was very definitely Protestant, and after the upheavals of the 17th century, the political implications of a Catholic monarch were not to be contemplated. In fact, Sophia died 2 months before Queen Anne, and so her eldest son, George, Elector of Hanover, became King George I. So effectively, since 1714, the British monarchy has been German. The Germanic nature of the British monarchy was reinforced by certain rules that were in place within the House of Hanover, and later within the House of Saxe-Coburg-Gotha. Under these rules, members of this house had to marry within German royalty. This meant that the Germanic nature of British royal family for 200 years was reinforced with every generation. In fact, George V himself was married to Princess Mary of Teck, a German royal. Throughout most of the 200-year period, the language used within the British royal family was in fact German. The idea of a country having a royal family from a different country is nothing new. In the 19th century, as more and more countries became independent, many of these countries chose to become monarchies and effectively imported royalty from other countries, especially Germany. For example, when Bulgaria became independent of the Ottoman Empire in 1908, the House of Saxe-Coburg-Gotha, yes, the same as Prince Albert's, became the kings or czars of the newly independent nation. Ferdinand I was the first king, followed by Boris, and finally by Simeon II, who became king in 1943 as a child. He was deposed by the communists in 1946 and lived most of his life in the West. On the liberation of Bulgaria and the collapse of the Soviet Union, Simeon returned to Bulgaria and became prime minister, a rare case of somebody serving both as king and prime minister of a country. Another example of this was the attempt by Mexico to import a member of the Austrian Habsburg monarchy to become the Emperor of Mexico in the 1860s. And surprisingly as it may seem, it could well have succeeded if Napoleon III of France had given them enough support. Instead, poor Maximiliano of Habsburg faced a firing squad. The point is, for most of human history, people didn't expect kings or emperors to be of the same nationality or even to speak the same language. In 1910, King George V became king and was, in many respects, the most revolutionary king that Britain had seen for many centuries. This was not out of choice, but out of circumstances. The early part of his reign coincided with massive social and political changes in the UK. It is fair to say that the country was well on the way to becoming a full democracy. It is true that not all men could vote, neither could women, but great steps had already been made. Public opinion started to count. The future of the monarchy would depend on public support. In 1914, war broke out, and most European countries were monarchies. Three of the main combatants, the United Kingdom, Germany, and Russia, were ruled by three cousins: Kaiser Wilhelm II of Germany, Tsar Nicholas II of Russia, and King George V of the United Kingdom were all grandsons of Queen Victoria. You can see the family resemblance here. By 1917, the First World War had been going on for 3 years, and at this point things were not going very well for the Allies. Russia was convulsed in revolution, allowing the Central Powers to concentrate on the Western Front, and although America had entered the war, it would be some time before the United States would be able to make its presence felt. However, from the King's point of view, there was another major problem. British casualties in this war were horrendous, and it had a profound effect on British attitudes to Germany and anything German. The King was thinking of the future of the monarchy. Unlike previous centuries, public opinion was now fundamental to the survival of the monarchy. George V was right to be worried. By the end of the First World War, two of these emperors were swept away by revolution, and indeed, in July 1918, Tsar Nicholas and his family would be killed by the Bolsheviks. The House of Windsor was established in 1917, and all the rules obliging princes and princesses of the royal house to marry into German royalty were abolished, and indeed, members of the royal house could marry commoners. Not real commoners, you understand, but at least not just members of German royalty. From that point on, the royal family, now with a very, very English surname, was also very keen to put on a grand show for coronations, weddings, funerals, and other state occasions. Before the 20th century, many of these state events took place out of sight from ordinary people. So there we have it. Today's monarchy, as we understand it, has only been around for just over 100 years. Bye for now.